2. Welcome back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It is Pittsburgh week around here, and it would not be Pittsburgh week without talking to this guy. He was up late on Monday night, as were all of us, watching the Pittsburgh Steelers take on the B team, the Cincinnati Bengals. This week, it's a fascinating matchup here. No Joe Flacco's, no Ben Roethlisberger's, no Terrell Suggs, no Le'Veon Bell's, no Antonio Brown's, but there will be a Nestor Aparicio and an Ed Bouchette and Mr. Rooney's Cookies in daylight football. Ed Bouchette is no longer with the organization he was once. He's with The Athletic now, where I'm a subscriber. I tell Zrebeck all the time, Ed, they got my $36 this year. Welcome in, senior writer from The Athletic. Always good to have you aboard. And a fascinating quarter poll here for the AFC North, huh?
Well, it is, Nestor, because if the Steelers beat Baltimore and Cleveland goes out to San Francisco Monday and loses, we're looking at a three-way tie at 2 and 3, and shaping up as a bloody, interesting, quirky AFC North division again.
Okay, quirky. This is a quirky Steelers team, right? Like, I watched it the other night. I mean, obviously, they chased Marvin out of Cincinnati, and there wasn't much to talk about on the other side of the ball. But I watched the Steelers, and I thought, well, this is kind of a different thing that's going on here, and a matchup thing, and Mason Rudolph and Tomlin's trying to figure out how to keep it together, how to keep a job, how to put it back together. 0-3. That's you haven't covered a lot of 0-3 football games in your 30, 40 year, however many years it's been, Ed.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. Well, it was recently, Nestor, 2012. They started out 0-4. They lost their fourth game in London to a bad Minnesota team, and they rallied to go 8-8. But historically, 0-4 teams do not recover. One has made the playoffs, the '92 Chargers, who started 0-4, and so we had the shovels out, ready to put them in their grave Monday night if they lost to Cincinnati. Instead, they put themselves right back in it because they're a game out. It's way early. They have a young quarterback who knows what's going to happen with him. You saw that last year in Baltimore, winning a division title. So it's wide open, provided they play good football.
You watch week one and you see the Titans just slobber knock the Browns after 6 months of you, me, and everybody else saying, yeah, maybe the Browns have the most talent. And if you take Roethlisberger away and you start taking the Jimmy Smiths and the Tavon Young, all of a sudden it feels a little lopsided. They get their butts kicked in week one. Ed, they slobber knock the Ravens. I mean, it's they're running for cover in Owings Mills this week because they were thoroughly beaten by the Cleveland Browns at home. Baker Mayfield running around having a good time. And this is a week where the Ravens are trying to find themselves, and finding yourselves at the confluence, that's usually not a good place to find yourself at Sunday at 1 o'clock,
Yeah, that surprised me when they lost to Cleveland at home. It really did. I thought Baltimore, I saw them play at Kansas City. A game was shown here, and I thought they looked good in that loss. That's a tough place to play, and so I figured they're going to come home. They're going to beat the Browns and start taking control of this division.
Yeah, I talked about that all last week. That's
yeah,
it sounded nice going to Pittsburgh 3-1, and instead it feels like, oh my God, we're fighting for our lives, right?
Yeah. It's there are never must wins at this stage of the game. This probably goes in the category, Nestor, of better win for either team. Because Baltimore can really take a big step by winning in Pittsburgh because they could, then they get the Steelers at home later. And the Steelers can, as I said, could possibly climb into that first place tie. Even if it's not a first place tie, they will put themselves back and make this season relevant for them again, where it looked like it might not be.
Ed Bouchette has been a senior writer in Pittsburgh for many, many years. He's with the new kids on the block at The Athletic. You can find him at The Athletic PGH, as well as at Ed Bouchette out on Twitter, where tens of thousands of yins and at follow every word and hang on everything with the Steelers. All right, so let's start at the top. You famously know of my relationship with your head coach there, and we have some back and forth, usually more off-season than in-season. Where's the organization at this point? What am I going to find when I get up there this week with a 1-3 football team? As you said, scraping a little bit. The Ravens, hey, we're all chasing the Browns all of a sudden. It's a little weird. That hadn't happened in 20 years around here, so all the boats are a little rocked. I would say around here with Lamar, Harbaugh re-upping, DeCosta taking over, it feels like there's a lot of runway here for whatever were to happen to the Ravens this year with Lamar, who's improving, and we feel all that. The defense here is a mess, and they're cutting third-round draft picks here this week, so there's a lot of movement, but there's not that kind of movement. It's more like we got to figure these players out, and we got to find some leaders and figure out who we're going to pay to play football moving forward around here. With the Steelers, when you have your quarterback, feels maybe kind of like where the Ravens were last year with Flacco, which is maybe Ben's coming back, maybe he's not. We've shoveled dirt on Ben, Tomlin, all sorts of people there, but we're finding a whole different thing. Please tell me about the state of the Steelers, Ed.
Well, it's interesting because it's not just the quarterback here that is changing, Nestor. They traded away a first-round draft pick for the first time in 52 years. When Chuck Noll came here in '69, they had traded a bunch of draft picks before him. In fact, one year in the '60s, they didn't have a draft pick until the 7th round. But when he came here, they said, okay, we're not trading draft picks anymore. And they haven't. Maybe some late picks, stuff like that. But for the most part, they've just kept their draft picks until this year, and they had a big problem at safety, so they traded away their first-round pick next year for Minka Fitzpatrick, who was unhappy, in Miami. He has really played decently in his first two games. They traded away a fifth-round pick next year for a tight end because their tight end, Vance McDonald, was hurt, and they don't have a backup, really. They moved up in the draft to get Devin Bush this year and traded away a second this year and a third next year. So this is really a different Steelers you're going to see in both organizationally in their philosophy and now with the new quarterback. And I'd say they're in transition, but they still have a lot of veterans on this team.
You've been at this a long time, and you have never really been on executive watch or head coach watch, and I share that with you, right? Like, we honored Coach Billick this week, our partner here on behalf of Living Classrooms Foundation. He's in the Ring of Honor, and he was the last guy that got fired around here, and we keep coaches, we keep executives, we groom executives. They told Eric DeCosta for a decade he would be the guy. He turned down every job, every interview. He's the guy. So the stability, in many ways, Steve has modeled everything he's done with the Ravens on what the Rooneys have done, on stability. Even Jerry Jones has had real stability in Dallas, and I know he was a mentor to Steve as well. Yet here are the Steelers doing those, I don't want to say desperate things, but those things that say we have to win right here, right now, because that's where we are. Maybe they felt that way because Roethlisberger, they felt like the sell-by date was going to expire on him a little bit. Maybe it's Tomlin. Maybe it's at the top of the organization for everyone to say there might be the tectonic plate shaking. Harbaugh was getting fired at Thanksgiving last year, right? Like, all that was going to happen. He has survived. Eric has survived here, and stability has survived. And I always feel that way about your organization as well. And that really, and you go to combines and you see all of this desperate executives, and we see them in Cleveland all the time, right? That only have 18 months to make something happen with a 4-12 football team. These two organizations have never operated that way, and maybe that speaks to sort of the tortoise and the hare and why they've been so successful for the whole part of the first quarter of the century, quite frankly.
Yeah, I wrote this the other day, Nestor. These two teams have combined for 13 of the 17 AFC North titles since it became the AFC North in '02. So, that explains it in a nutshell. The Steelers have had 3 head coaches in 51 years. And in this age of Twitter and instant gratification and free agency and all that, the fans are not happy about a lot of that. They want change. It fuels their excitement. They want a new head coach. They want a new quarterback. They want to see trades. You give away a first round draft pick for next year. Oh well, we get that player now. And that so there's the fan base, a lot of them who want that, and there's the Steelers who just keep going along with tradition. Except, like I mentioned, they have altered their philosophy a little bit this year as far as acquiring players.
What's fascinating for me, we get to the quarter poll, and we would say who are the best players through 4 games. And when I look up and down the Steelers roster, there's some names I don't recognize, but there are also some familiar faces out there making plays on defense on Monday night against Cincinnati. Who's the best player? Who are there? I mean, James Conner, when the ankle turned, I went to Twitter and I'm like, wow, that would change the game, especially the way the Ravens defense is played here at the quarter poll. The Ravens defense is 25th, sort of has earned that, played the JV against Miami, and you guys got the JV game last week against Cincinnati. But against in real crucial situations, this has been a defense that's had all sorts of communication problems, some problems getting there. I think you're going to see a different team here. Where are you with the Steelers? I mean, who are their best players at this point?
It's funny. As you were asking that question, I started thinking about this offense 2 years ago with the killer bees, if you will, Bell, AB, and Ben. They were hailed as perhaps the best offense in the league, if not right up there. And now those 3 guys are out. Boom, 2 are gone. One's watching from the sidelines the rest of the season. And who's their star on offense? Well, last year you'd say Juju Smith-Schuster. He was their MVP. He made the Pro Bowl. And right now he caught 3 passes for 15 yards against the Bengals the other night. So far, he does not look like a number 1 receiver. He looks like a really good number 2 guy, and they don't have a number 1 guy. Their stars are in their offensive line. 3 Pro Bowlers there. James Conner is not running as he did last year, and it's early yet now, and that can change. But he is not. I don't know that he's averaging 3 yards a carry. I don't have the stats right in front of me, but this Jalen Samuels, who ran the Wildcat the other day, I think he's the second player since the 1970 NFL merger to have 3 runs from scrimmage, 3 completions from scrimmage, and 3 catches. So it's really changing on offense. On defense, T.J. Watt's their star, I would say. Devin Bush is one everybody's going to know because he was a 10th round pick in the draft, and he's been making some improvements. Joe Hayden, everybody knows because he's been in this division with Cleveland and now Pittsburgh in his 3rd year. Cam Hayward, their defensive line is good. Their corners, they have a new one in Steven Nelson. They got in free agency who's played well. He came over from Kansas City. So, and I mentioned Minka Fitzpatrick. So the defense actually has a chance, I think, to be the strength of this team once again.
Mason Rudolph, jury's out, obviously, and there's other things going on around him. One thing you can't complain about, as you've pointed out, got a pretty good offensive line. It doesn't have the problems that Andy Dalton had the other night, let's say, right? From an operational
that's a terrible line.
I mean, we're going to see that next week around here. I tweeted out in the middle of the game, you better not lose to them. I mean, all things considered, I don't know where they play Miami late in the year, so somebody will win one of those games. But for Mason Rudolph and sitting on the bench and learning a little bit and watching him throw the ball around at practice in August, capable in your mind? I mean, is he an heir apparent, or is it the quarter poll too early to figure that out?
The jury's out on the heir apparent thing. It really is, because Ben says he's going to come back strong next year, and he'll be 38. He'll have 2 more years on his contract, and we'll see if he can. The problem is with a guy like Ben at 38, any quarterback, any player, if you will. You can be as healthy as anything, but you're still 38, and stuff happens like that arm. He didn't get hit; it just gave way. The elbow did, But Mason Rudolph is in his second year. Part of the problem for them is he was the number 3 quarterback. Josh Dobbs was number 2 last year when he was a rookie, so he didn't get a lot of snaps in practice. That's a lot of snaps he could have really used going into this season. And this year they traded Dobbs. And Mason was number 2. He earned that job in camp. I think he can be a good quarterback. He seems to have the savvy, the arm, and he's thrown 2 touchdowns in each of his 3 games so far. But I don't know that he has the receivers who are going to make him help him out a whole lot this year, Nestor.
Well, I mean, you're talking about $50 million worth of player, right? And Le'Veon Bell, more than that, Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown that are no longer there, where they're not going to be there at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Ed Bouchette joins us. He is from The Athletic these days. You can find him out on Twitter. I said to Luke, it felt like the offense was moving in slow motion to some degree. And still Cincinnati couldn't catch him. But from what I'm used to in those jerseys running around, it just felt like they've really had to dial back a lot of stuff just because they don't have those players any longer.
No, right. They're babying, if you will, Rudolph. They really are. If you watch that game the other night, I mean, he's basically handing off, but it's a forward pass because it's a little flip forward, and so his stats look great. I mean, he was like 23 of 27, something like that. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think he averaged 3.5 yards per pass beyond the line of scrimmage because so many of those were 3.5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I don't know if they're going to. I assume as they go along, they'll take the reins off a little bit, let him go a little bit. But so far in his first 2 starts, they haven't done that.
Ed, for you with the Ravens and what you're expecting on this thing, the Lamar Jackson experiment continues, right? And this is really his first taste. He didn't play much in those first 2 games last year. Flacco was still the quarterback around here. You've watched from afar. I think we saw when he was drafted. Now the Ravens are playing analytics. They're going on 4th and 1 from their own 34. They're kicking field goals and doing 2 points when maybe the fans say, what the hell's going on? We've moved into a different bubble here in the way that this offense wants to operate and Lamar Jackson. It does create an interesting week defensively for the Steelers in how you match up against an offense that really does want to sort of play bumper car a little bit.
Well, it impresses me a couple ways. What Baltimore is doing is Lamar's thrown, 10 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions. He has all those yards rushing. And then Mark Ingram, what's he averaging? 6 yards a carry, something like that. That's it. They have to. You're right. It's going to be an interesting to see how they even approach this. They've had some trouble with quarterbacks in the past who can run, and it's not just a runner. I mean, Lamar's shown he can throw the ball as well. So I don't know. This could be this game, nothing would surprise me other than I don't think the Steelers are going to win big. I think they'd have to win close. I could see Baltimore winning big, though.
Ed, it's always great to visit with you. Tell Mr. Rooney to keep me some cookies for Sunday and a nice little brunch there at the Confluence. Up and back this time. We don't play a lot of 1 o'clock games. I can't remember the last time this game was like in broad daylight, right? This one's always a night game.
It's a beautiful thing. 1 o'clock kickoffs are a beautiful thing, Nestor.
Get you home for 60 minutes and watch some Sunday Night Football. Hey, Ed, appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.
All right, Nestor. Good
at The Athletic these days, where I am a subscriber. I always tell Jeff Zrebeck that. You can find Ed Bouchette out at Ed Bouchette. That's Bouchette, senior writer. He's only been covering the Steelers since 1985. Wow. Almost back to Hanratty and Bradshaw, but yeah, pretty much. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram. We've got Baltimore Positive coming out this week. 2 Fadley's downtown in Lexington Market and our 2 locations in Catonsville, both State Fair. We got Ben Carden and Baltimore Homecoming, as well as our friends at Jennings Cafe, where I'm going to get a Jennings burger, probably bring home some lasagna before it's all over with as well. Live show at Greenmount Station on October the 15th to celebrate my 51st birthday with Bradley Bozeman. We'll be talking about anti-bullying and his big message, as well as his Halloween event coming up later on in the month. The BuyAToyota.com audio vault is there 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in from Pittsburgh through Somerset and Breezewood, where I'll be meeting Luke Jones. Traveling across Pennsylvania. Maybe the leaves will be changing up there. I don't know. It's been a little warm for that. We'll see. The morning newspaper ships digitally to your email inbox. You can read about my sort of open letter to John Angelos this week. Oh, say, can you see a lease for Camden Yards for the Orioles? Please go read that. It is in the morning newspaper. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's always $5 down and $10 a month. Big shout out to the Brick family. Appreciate their love around here as well. Last but never least, when Tim Williams gets cut, you get it first on the WNST Tech Service. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and Dennis Kolatzos will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home. It is the SSV on WNST. I will be participating before Pittsburgh this weekend. I'm getting ready for all sorts of Baltimore positive awesomeness around here, as well as a trip to Pittsburgh. We got Cincinnati coming in, a lot of baseball to watch. I'm going to be wearing my Dodgers hat and hating on the Nationals because it's more fun that way. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.